What's up, guys? How's it going?
What's up? Say what's up, there go.
What's up?
Okay. First and foremost, it's dope to even be here right now because Quiet as kept, he doesn't work on weekends, so.
That's right. That's right.
So we got a special treat with him working on weekends and coming out of his comfort zone. Thank you for being here. Number one thing that I want to start with is kind of like your beginnings, honestly, because for those of you that don't know, well, actually, I'll let you do your own like little blurb of who you are and stuff like that for the people that streaming, watching at home. If they have no idea, do your Googles, but give them a little blurb of who you are, bro.
Do your Googles, man. All right, my name is Irko. I was born and raised in Venice, Italy, where I fell in love with sound even before falling in love with music. Is that even a thing? I
Yes.
guess it is for me. I don't know. So I discovered hip-hop music because at the time, in the 90s, and I'm dating myself here, although the whites give it away. But anyway, it was the music that had the biggest low end, the biggest bass. I'm a bass head, so naturally I gravitated towards hip-hop music, which at the time, because I did not speak English, it sounded like blah, 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 blah. I didn't know what the hell they were saying, you know? Eventually, you know, fast forward 10, 15 years, I moved to New York, where 3 weeks after I got off the plane, I got my first double platinum award for working with Jay-Z.
Okay.
Hello.
All right. Just stop. Hold on. We're gonna get to the Kingdom Come album.
Yeah.
But I do want to go back. We were talking before we came out, and you were saying that hip hop wasn't a thing in Italy, right?
Definitely.
Did it not exist, or was it not allowed, or how did that work?
I mean, it was less than a niche kind of thing. It kind of existed a little bit, but it was basically non-existent. And so my first studio that I opened in my dad's garage was just like a little area where a lot of hip-hop heads would gravitate. So it was, you know, people that heard about Wu-Tang Clan and people that heard about EPMD, stuff like that. I was clearly one of them. But, you know, it did not exist. Definitely not in the mainstream.
So when you did, do you remember the first time you heard hip-hop? Do you remember what it was?
I don't know the very first one, but I can tell you that my first tape was Doggy Style.
Yes.
My first.
Give it up for Snoop Dogg,
yeah,
goddammit.
Of course. Which I got to mix 10 years later, which is crazy.
I just want to
right?
point out that it was Snoop and not Nas, because that argument we beat to death. But anyway, shout out to New York. Anyway, it's West Coast.
No, my first CD was Busta Rhymes, so.
But you got introduced with Doggy Style, and that's an amazing. First of all, let me ask you this. I never had a chance to ask anybody this because nobody ever is familiar that much, but is Doggy Style not one of the best mixed albums ever?
Oh, for sure. If it paints like it's a movie.
Right.
It's a movie with different scenes, right? Which is a lot of my, I hope that I can get that kind of sound landscape to the albums that I mix. And doing albums has become a little bit of my specialty. See Donda, hello. That's, so yeah, definitely Doggy Style was it,
I always
man.
tell, like, when I'm talking to, like, I go to, shout out to 1500 and then I go to their music school, and I'm talking to people about mixing albums, and I'm like, oh, for the best point of reference, like, go listen to Doggy Style. That's something we talked about last year here at NAMM. That was the main one that everybody was like, oh yeah, Doggy Style is one of those albums that's mixed so much instrumentation, but still slap. But then the vocals come through clear. Like, it's a movie. But I want to get into the education point of it, because raise your hand if you are in school or have gone to school for music at any way. Okay, so raise your hand if you're self-taught, YouTube University, all that good shit. All right, cool. So I want to talk about the difference between the two. Are you formally trained? And then do you see the benefit in going to music school versus being self-taught? Like, where do you stand on that?
There's definitely a benefit. I did go to school for audio engineering, but that was, 1700 years ago. So I don't know if that really counts. And also, it was, again, in Italy. So it was very far from the landscape and sonics that I was interested in, But the OGs over there taught me how to microphone oboe and freaking orchestras and stuff like that, right? And ultimately, the stuff that you do learn at school is all the technicalities of stuff that you will use regardless of the genre. I mean, microphones are microphones, right? And you can use it to record Lil Wayne just like you would use the same mic to record the LA Phil if you really want, right?
Right.
But once you get out of any training, any like schooling path or thing or course, whatever, you usually don't know how to do an album, you know, but it is setting you in the right direction to learn, and eventually over the years and practice and you know, learning from the mistakes, you get to be, you know, to know what you're doing.
Do you feel like being self-taught is just as good as having formal education, or do you feel like you need that?
Hard to say. It's different. I would say that there's more to a schooling environment than just the books and the knowledge, right? There's your peers that you grow with, and maybe together 10 years down the line you guys are getting Grammys together. So there's a lot more than just the learning piece. There's the networking, the building camaraderie and all of that, you know?
What about internships? Did you have any early before you left Italy, or did the internship stuff, or did you start working your way in the studios once you got to New York?
That'll be the answer to that will be almost no internship. That's because I was immediately, even before the schooling path of my career, I knew I wanted to do hip hop, and there was no hip hop in Italy. So I had to build my own space, my own place where hip hop could exist. So although yes, I did some assisting sessions and stuff like that in Italy, it was very minor, you know. And then when I moved to New York, you know, knowing that I knew everything about Pro Tools and stuff, I saw some other recording engineers at Sony, and I was like, oh, okay, I need to learn that. So there's levels to this, you know?
So you learned Pro Tools in Italy.
Yeah.
Through formal education.
Yeah.
And then took that skills and applied it once you got to New York.
Yeah.
Now, when you moved to New York, because a lot of people do get in their car and relocate, right?
Yeah.
To do music full time. They quit their 9 to 5, shit like that. Can you speak to either some things that you had to tell yourself, some trials and tribulations? I know I read something that you were eating fruit and bread for like months while you were in New York. But
Yeah,
can
man.
you speak to that journey?
Yeah. Being broke. That's all we gotta talk about. Being broke, you know, I packed all my stuff. Well, not all my stuff, like just a bag of clothes, and flew across the planet. And literally in what felt like a jump in the dark like this. Like, I don't know where I'm going. I'm overextending over here. But it's so funny because people cry about working for free. I had to pay to work. That's even beyond that.
What do you mean?
I had to fly across the planet, have, you know, a rent to be paid and expenses to be paid when I had zero money and not making money. So really, I was paying to work, which is crazy.
Did you buy a one-way ticket?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. I went back and forth a couple of times, but then after that, I was like, yeah, this is it.
Now, for people, is anyone not from America here?
Hey,
so for
immigrants.
Do you have to get some sort of, like, I know you get a work visa?
Oh my God.
Or
that's a whole other thing. Yeah. So the first.
Do you have papers? Are you here? No,
Oh shit! I'm about to get arrested, y'all. Somebody's taking me away. Justin, help me. Brian Anthony, my security.
I don't want to get nobody in trouble, but I don't know the process of that. That's what I'm at.
No. Yeah, it's difficult because you got to show to the government that you're here legit and you want to do some, you know, some proper stuff. So yeah, I had to go through those hoops too.
Okay, so now let's get to the new. You're in New York. You're surviving. You're broke. You're living on fruit and bread.
Yeah.
What kind of fruit was it?
You know the fruit tray that I got at the studio.
Oh, a fruit tray.
Yeah,
okay, not even real fruit. Okay.
Leftovers.
Leftover
Stuff
fruit.
with the spin on it.
and just loaves of bread.
Yeah, the bread. It was like Wonder Bread and cream cheese. That was the jam back then. You know, months, man, months. Yeah.
So while you're doing this, are you like basically trying to get in the room? Are you assisting? Like, because people here are like trying to figure out, like, do you kind of just push your way into a session? Do you ask to be a part of the session? How'd you work your way into the Jay-Z sessions?
So the Jay-Z thing was unrelated to this because I was already freelancing.
Okay.
But when I was first in New York, that's another thing. I had never seen an SSL console until I moved to the States. There were no SSL consoles in Italy back then, you know? So as soon as I stepped into a studio where they had one at Bad Boy, I immediately became best friends with the tech person at the studio. I was like, bring out the manual. And you know, those things are this thick, you know, like with the metal hoops and stuff. So I started learning that stuff because I wanted...
Wait. You read an SSL manual?
Yeah, I had to learn that thing in and out. I wanted to know the whole thing, you know?
You're crazy. All right, go ahead.
I had to, you know? Because, and this leads to where I was trying to get to... you know, specifically to answer your question, which was, I needed to make myself useful to whoever was around me. So whether if that was an artist or a producer or even somebody managing the studio, I wanted to be an asset. I wanted that to be that person that a month after, this person could not be in the studio without me. And so I just made myself useful. And one of the things is, no engineer knew the console at a manual level. So I was like, let me study the freaking manual so that I know how to work these things, you know?
Make yourself useful. Make yourself an asset.
Yeah.
Indispensable. That's very important.
Yeah.
Okay, so later on, you find yourself in the studio for Jay-Z's return album after he retired,
Right.
which was bullshit.
Right.
But
Yep.
can you take us through that process? Were you invited to the session, or you just kind of pushed your way in, or?
So when I present this information, like I've been there 3 weeks, got up top and worried. Yes, all true, but also I'm like romanticizing the thing. You know, this was after 10, 15 years of rapport with people, and specifically with my buddy B Money, which I'm still friends, very good friends with him to this day, right? And so again, I mixed a bunch of stuff for this guy, and when it was time for him to be able to place his own engineer in the situation, guess who called? He called me, obviously. You know, I was in town, and I was in town because he kept messing with me, talking about, you got to come to New York, you know? But again, a broke guy at 20-something is like, okay, I'll just go. So yeah, it was one of those things, you know, he was on my top 5 on MySpace or whatever. We had done
top eight.
Whatever that was, yes. Whatever. And we've done a lot of records, and that's what it was. And at first, we did not know it was Jay-Z. We know it was for Rockefeller. And then, you know, a week or so later came the information that Jay-Z was in it because of the splits, right? So we saw his name. But it could have been, I don't know, Beanie Siegel or Memphis Bleak or something. We didn't know. Eventually, it turns out that was the last record that was made, which ended up being track 1 on the album, right? The prelude. Yeah. And my name being in that CD cover changed my life.
Changed your life.
I still have not met Jay-Z, even though I mixed him several times.
Are you serious?
I have not met the guy, and I cannot wait to say thank you for changing my life. And that is a true statement.
That's fire. Give it up for that. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, not everybody gets their first big break with Jay-Z, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I do want to talk about, like, some technicalities, some intricacies, right?
Sure.
So, studio setup, you say you worked on other genres that didn't exist. I mean, you worked on other genres when you were in Italy because rap music was not a thing in Italy.
Right.
Then you want to do rap music full time, so then you move to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about setups for different genres of music, right? What's your workflow like? What is that setup? Is it the same template? Like, those are the types of things that people want to know as well.
Yeah. So Studio Beat 3 has no console, even though I own a console. And in the first 2 studios, I had a console. 2023, and my approach in 2023 is to work entirely on Pro Tools. So my entire mix happens in the computer, does not leave the computer.
No outboard.
No outboard. I do have all the outboards, but I don't use them for mixing. They're used by my tracking engineer for recording. So basically on the way into Pro Tools.
So all of your mixes you do in the box?
Everything.
That's crazy.
And not only that, in the box meaning on Pro Tools, but my
Right.
actual Mac Mini, which is the computer I operate out of, is literally in a box that I take with me wherever I go. So it's a double decker in the box.
You mix
situation.
all of your records on a Mac Mini.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Anybody else have a Mac Mini?
Yeah.
See? There you go.
Anybody's got it in a portable thing?
No.
No. Oh, hey, my man.
But yeah, so is there ever a time where someone has requested that you run analog to mix?
No, I'm kind of known in the music industry for my low end and my sound. Like, it's a little bit of a signature sound that I got going on, I think, and I hope. And so whenever they call me, it's for the sound that I'm known for. You know, if you hear any of my projects, they have that typical boom bap kind of approach on drums, unless it's something else that's requested. But so no, they don't get to dictate what I use to achieve the goal. You know, most likely they will get me to get them to that goal. You know, and so then I decide what to do.
So you're known for your sound, the low end. We speak a lot about drums. You like stuff to hit. Most of your shit does hit. All of your shit hits. In the box, I have a myth that I want to ask you about that we could probably talk about publicly, but is anybody here on FL Studio as producers? Okay.
I'm sure, yeah.
Is it true that the FL Studio drums hit harder than all the other drums in the other DAWs? Is that like a myth, or is that true in your experience?
That's a fact.
It's a fact.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Do you know why? Can you explain?
Yeah, so digital does not like clipping, right? The red in digital is the enemy of sound. But if you get to manage the information and how it does approach that red, and that's what FL does, you get to generate harmonics that are based on the actual sound that's getting pushed, but it gets just interpreted by our ears as more prominent, louder, just more aggressive. So whenever the producers produce in FL and they get to hit that threshold, going real red, the software doesn't tell them, hey, you need to turn it down because you're starting to distort. It just distorts it. So it's basically like using lo-fi on Pro Tools, right? And just plop it in and just distort it. So my way to go around giving the producers that sound of the harmonic content that's heavily driven on FL Productions while I'm on Pro Tools mixing is to do that. So I know what FL does, so I just recreate it in a controlled environment though, because the problem with the red is the redder you go, the more you lose low end. We can't have that. That's against our religion, right? So I gotta make sure that I control the low end at the same time that I'm controlling the harmonic content.
Damn, I never heard anybody explain it like that. Okay.
It's the bow tie.
I know it's the bow tie, the power of the bow tie. I do want to get some questions because we don't have that much time, but yeah. I can't skip Donda. Okay, you working with Kanye, with Ye, and the Donda album. Well, first of all, how'd you link up with Ye? How'd you end up like getting that connection to work on his album?
So I mixed in 2009. I mixed the first record with Ye through 88 Keys. I did 88 Keys album, the entire thing. And again, it happened that the last song I mixed was track 1. That's like a pattern here, right? And whenever they heard the whole thing I'm mastering, Ye was like, whoever mixed that needs to mix the whole thing.
No shit.
Didn't know my name, didn't know my face, didn't know anything. And that was so refreshing because it was like such a merit-based kind of choice. And I was like, wow, only a guy like him would do something like that, by the way, And so that was refreshing. So that was the first time. And, 88 and I have been friends since then. We're talking like 15, maybe 20 years at this point. And so, Ye was not happy with the mixes that he was getting. And they sent me one to do. I did it in like, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes on headphones. It was just like something very basic.
On headphones?
Yeah, it was like very quick. This is not a record that actually ended up in the album, but it was something for him to hear,
Mix Kanye West record on the headphones.
Right, no problem.
I got shit to do.
Yeah. But and then, he was sold and I got started on doing the album at the stadium in Atlanta. Did that for maybe a week or something. And then after that, I went to another studio in Atlanta, and then finally I flew back here to finish it at my spot, luckily.
So were you guys held hostage at the stadium?
No. It wasn't like that.
Okay. So in the process of mixing...
He's a very nice guy.
Right.
There's a lot of myths around him.
In the process of mixing the Donda album, were there... Because Kanye seems like he's very hands-on. Like, did he just let you do your thing, or...
So, as typical it is for his character, he's got two aspects of his approach with me, right? It's one where he's very, very specific with some things, namely he doesn't want no reverb on his voice and things like that, right?
No reverb at all?
Right, like at all.
Okay.
But then on the other hand of that, there was basically no direction given for the music side of things in terms of the blends and stuff. That's all me. Like, I want to say the landscape sonically of the whole album is like 95% me.
Really?
So he was very specific with some things, but he delegated a lot of choices to me, which was great.
Well, it's interesting because on the Donda album, there's a lot of like synth, there's a lot of choir, like there's a lot of like grandioso type. And I like, this is a personal question, but what's the most tracks probably on one of those sessions? Like on the Donda album, what song had the most tracks?
The one with Fabio was probably the biggest one, I want to say, but that's because the intro with Playboi Carti is completely unrelated to the actual song. Even though they share the same lyrics, that's the whole thing. That's like the drums are different, the BPMs are different, everything is different. So I had to mix the intro on one session, the actual song, which is like 7 minutes long, on another session, and then merge the two into a monster session of the whole thing. So that was by far the tallest.
How many tracks do you remember?
Maybe 200 between the two. It was a lot.
So 200 per session?
No, together.
Oh, together. Okay.
But then Life of the Party, the one with Andre 3000, that was also a super tall session for the beat. But if you hear it, it sounds like a sample, which is intentional. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
He had no words.
If you're just joining us, go to engineers.com for all the info. Give it up for Irko for sharing this.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
We're gonna have Irko on the other side of this wall, take pictures and stuff like that. He got a few minutes, and then we'll start the next panel about 10 minutes out. Thank you.
Let's go.